The night she asked me out, I was already halfway to losing everything that mattered to me. My phone vibrated, her name lit up the screen, and for reasons I couldn't explain, my chest tightened like it was warning me. One message. Just one sentence. "Wanna go out with me?" I stared at it, knowing that whatever I replied would change my life forever, my friendship, my past, and the quiet promise I had made to myself never to cross certain lines. My best friend's sister had just stepped into my heart's territory, and there was no turning back that I had known her since she was 16. Not that kind of knowing, more like a background presence in my life. She was always there when I visited my best friend's house, always polite, always smiling softly, never loud, never demanding attention. Over the years, she grew into someone different. Stronger. Quieter. Someone who watched more than she spoke. And somehow, without me noticing, she had stopped being just my best friend's little sister. She became a woman with her own battles, her own silence, her own courage. That message didn't come out of nowhere. Looking back, I realized there had been signs. The way she lingered in conversations. The way she asked about my dreams instead of my job. The way she listened, really listened, when I spoke about my fears. But I had ignored it all, hiding behind loyalty and fear. My best friend, Adil, had been like a brother to me since childhood. We had grown up together, shared failures, celebrated small wins, and stood by each other when life felt cruel. Dating his sister felt like betrayal, even if my heart was beginning to argue otherwise. That I didn't reply immediately. I put the phone down, walked to the window, and watched the city lights flicker like uncertain thoughts. I knew if I said yes without honesty, I'd hurt everyone. And if I said no without explanation, I'd hurt her. So when I finally typed back, I chose the only truth I had. Love always starts from the heart. It wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was a door half open. She called me instead of texting back. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the courage it took to dial that number. She told me she wasn't asking for promises, wasn't asking me to fight with her brother, wasn't asking me to rush. She just wanted a chance to know if what she felt was real. She told me she had admired me for years, not because I was perfect, but because I was kind when no one was watching. That night, I realized something painful and beautiful at the same time. Sometimes love grows quietly, waiting for the right moment to speak. That we decided to take things slow, secretly at first. Coffee conversations turned into long walks. Long walks turned into shared silences that felt safe instead of awkward. She told me about the pressure of living in her brother's shadow, of being seen as someone's sister instead of her own person. I told her about my fear of disappointing the people I loved. We weren't falling blindly, we were choosing carefully, but secrets don't stay secrets forever. The day Adil found out, the world didn't explode the way I imagined, but it cracked. His silence hurt more than shouting ever could. He asked me one question, the kind that stays with you forever: did you think about me before this? I had no clever answer. I only had honesty. I told him I thought about him every day, and that was why I was terrified. I told him I hadn't touched her heart lightly, and I wouldn't play with it. He walked away without another word. That was the hardest chapter of my life. Loving her meant possibly losing him. And losing him meant losing a part of myself. For weeks, I lived in that tension, hope on one side, guilt on the other. She never pressured me. She never asked me to choose. Instead, she told me something I'll never forget: if love breaks families, it's not love. If it heals them, it's worth fighting for. Months passed. Slowly, painfully, honesty did its work. Adil watched how I treated her, how I respected her boundaries, how I supported her dreams, how I never hit her when things got difficult. One evening, he called me over. No anger. No accusations. Just tired eyes and a heavy sigh. He told me he had realized something. He trusted me more than anyone else in his life, and if there was one person he wanted beside his sister, it was someone who loved her from the heart, not from desire or convenience. The moment he said, "Take care of her," I felt something inside me heal. Years later, when I think about that first message, "Wanna go out with me?" I smile. Because love didn't start with a date. It didn't start with attraction. It started with honesty, patience, and respect. It started from the heart, exactly like I said. And the lesson stayed with me: real love doesn't rush, doesn't hide, and doesn't destroy what's already precious. It builds quietly, bravely, and when it's real, it brings everyone closer instead of tearing them apart. The days after Adil gave his quiet approval felt unreal, like walking through a familiar street that somehow looked brighter than before. Nothing dramatic changed on the surface, yet everything inside me settled. The weight I had been carrying for months slowly lifted, replaced by a responsibility deeper than fear. Loving her was no longer a secret or a risk, it was a promise I had to honor every single day. She noticed the change before I said anything. The way I held her hand felt steadier, the way I looked at her no longer carried hesitation. She smiled and said, half joking, "You look like someone who finally chose peace." And she was right. For the first time, I wasn't torn between loyalty and love. They were standing on the same side, but real love doesn't mean the road suddenly becomes smooth. Life tested us in quieter, harder ways. People talked. Some judged. Others whispered that it would never last, that friendships break when romance enters the picture. She heard those voices more than I did, and sometimes they shook her confidence. On nights when doubt crept into her eyes, I reminded her of the truth we had built, slowly, honestly, brick by brick. I reminded her that love isn't proven by grand gestures but by consistency when no one is clapping. She had her own dreams, ones she had buried for years because she thought she had to fit into someone else's expectations. I watched her rediscover herself, watched her grow bolder, watched her finally speak up for what she wanted. And in that process, she taught me something powerful: loving someone doesn't mean holding them close, it means standing behind them when they decide to step forward. Adil and I took time to rebuild our rhythm too. We weren't the same as before, but we were stronger in a different way. Our conversations grew deeper, more honest. One night, he admitted he had been scared, not of losing his sister, but of losing me. That confession hit me harder than any argument ever could. I realized then that trust, once tested and repaired, becomes unbreakable. There came a moment when she asked me, quietly, almost afraid of the answer, "If things had gone wrong, would you still choose me?" I didn't answer immediately. I took her hands and said the only truth that mattered: I didn't choose you because it was easy. I chose you because my heart recognized yours. And hearts don't regret choosing honesty. Years from now, people may forget how our story began. They won't remember the fear, the silence, the risk. But they'll see the result: a love built on patience, respect, and courage. A love that didn't rush, didn't hide, and didn't hurt others to survive. And if anyone ever asks me what I learned from it all, I'll say this: love doesn't begin with attraction or permission. It begins when two people decide to protect each other's hearts, even when it's difficult. Because when love truly starts from the heart, it doesn't just change two lives, it brings everyone closer, exactly the way it's meant to.